103, 5 Lincoln 102, Lincoln 103 and 102.
Responding to 401 parking structure, section 1 boy.
Henry 8, Henry 9. Respond to gate 437 Bravo for your dignitary detail. 3K 911 unattended 400 lower level near Carousel 4 Black Bag. GTA in progress 401 parking structure section 4 boy.
Responding to 401 parking structure, section 1 boy.
415 passenger onboard aircraft.
Control 2 Franklin en route.
484 suspect is female, Hispanic, 28 years of age, blue jeans, no further.
Control 5 Frank 401 is en route.
Hello and welcome to this edition of the LP Zone, the Loss Prevention Zone, where everything that we talk about is about retail security, loss prevention, employee theft, organized retail crime, and criminal investigations. Today we're talking about the enemy within. And that sounds like a movie title, doesn't it? The enemy within. But the truth of the matter is, we have over a number of years now seen more and more employees of the store who not only begin to steal merchandise and money from their employer, but we're seeing more and more employees being hired for only one reason, and that's not to earn a living or to generate an income. It's actually all a planned scheme to be hired on, especially in the retail environment, and then to commit internal theft. And oftentimes they are part of a bigger plan. And what I mean by a bigger plan is that these folks are not only intentionally being hired at these locations to steal, their whole intent is to be thieves internally, but they're also bringing with them their family, outsiders. This is true organized retail crime where people, 3, 4, 5, even larger crews, get hired together jointly at a retailer or even at an office, and then they begin to internally just rip off their employer every which way. And so that's what today's radio show is about, the enemy within. It wasn't too long ago that an entire network, including family members, brothers, sisters, cousins, a sister-in-law, and others, jointly worked together in an organized method to steal money and merchandise from a large retailer, Target. What they did was a number of them got on as employees, cashiers, and store clerks at several metropolitan Texas stores. And then, working with others in collusion, they not only passed off merchandise, but they set merchandise up at various locations within the store so that other family members and friends could come in and pick it up. This is not new. I've been investigating this type of retail theft and employee theft since the 70s. But what we're seeing is much more sophistication, much more pre-planning, much more scamming, and really the extent of internal theft now probably far exceeds what it ever did in the last 30 years. There's so many different ways that you can steal from the employer. Not only merchandise and cash, you can set up fraudulent credit card and check accounts and get all of these various avenues of ripping off the employer with multiple co-conspirators. And so today, on this program, we're talking about how this continues to really affect retail. And as we all know, the long game here in retail is that for every dollar stolen, the retailer has no choice but to continue to raise those prices to recoup and recover the money of theft. The majority of theft is not from the outside. The majority of the theft is from the inside. Our own employees who oftentimes are get hired with one purpose in mind, and that's to commit internal retail theft and fraud. A number of these associates at the Target store purposely applied and, of course, got hired because, especially right now, stores are just desperate for employees, and they probably didn't even do much of a background check, if at all. And what they did, these employees got hired, family members and friends. They worked with other family members and friends to not only underring them, which is a big issue in the retail environment, but they also passed off merchandise. So the family came in and they bought, 4 or 5 little items, and then the clerk schemed with their family and put additional merchandise into the bag. They were also found to have, like I said, set up merchandise in the domestics department, household, children's, and other areas of the store. They would set up the merchandise, pretty much have it all packaged and ready to go sometimes, where others from the outside were able to come in and physically pick that up and carry it out the store. People used to laugh at Walmart door greeters and other stores that had greeters. I was recently in a Ross for Less store. Not really one of my favorites, but occasionally I do check them out for things that they have on special, and you can sometimes find some pretty good buys. And at the store door, at the entrance to the door, they had a store employee who had a security smock on. Now, that really wasn't a huge deterrent, but it was something. And these store security greeters and door greeters and, different employees that are being put in position can be a big asset, especially when it comes to stuffing a bag, or when people, especially now with these self-checkouts, many stores, including the largest retailer in the world, Walmart, is finding that a lot of money is being lost through those self-checkouts. Well, when you have a door greeter or you have somebody at the door checking receipts on the way out, it does prevent some of the loss, some of the shrinkage, but not all, obviously. Would a real security officer at the door prevent, maybe deter, or maybe even distract would-be, thieves from running out with merchandise or any of that? We don't know. We really don't know. We've seen many times when stores have had one individual uniformed, unarmed security officer, and he's been overwhelmed or she's been overwhelmed by, half a dozen or a couple of dozen mobs who have come in and just rip everything off the shelves and just run out of the store. Not one person can stop all of those people. It's not going to happen. So, what's the answer? Well, today we're talking about embedded within, the enemy within our own business. And we have to maybe look at our hiring processes and screen our applicants a little bit more. And I often talk about one of the easiest methods to really check somebody out. Doesn't cost any money at all. You don't have to pay any screening company to do a background, because all that you have to do is really check out that person's social media and check out the people who are their friends and go look at the pictures. And when you start seeing people with guns and flashing money and gang signs and some of the people that are associated with that person, you can pretty much get a pretty clear picture as to who they are. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk about some of the issues that we've had through the years with the enemy within, embedded right into our own company without us knowing it. You're listening to the LP Zone Loss Prevention. Remember, you can send us news anytime that you see it happening in your area that relates to loss prevention, organized retail crime, or even uniform security. Helpdesk at privateofficer.com. Helpdesk at privateofficer.com. You can also go to our daily news blog and see what's happening. Fresh material every day. Nothing ever going to be stale there. It's all fresh. Private Officer, breakingnews.blogspot.com. And join us on Facebook /Private Officer International and also Twitter /Private Officer. You're listening to the LP Zone, the production of Private Officer International and Blue Ram Media.
For some children, America isn't the land of promise. It's a place where every day is a struggle. Because today in America, 1 in 6 children lives below the poverty line. For these children, living in poverty means going without medicine, going without food, going without a warm home, or even a roof over your head. And that's life for nearly 13 million children of all races, all across America. Where will you draw the line and get involved? You can help these children and their families find a way out of poverty for good. And you can make a difference in more ways than you think. Will you help? Go to povertyusa.org today, because 1 in 6 children in poverty is one too many. A message from the Catholic Campaign for Human Development.
I don't want to go blind from diabetes.
I don't want to lose a foot or a leg.
I don't want to have kidney failure, so I'm taking control.
I'm controlling my diabetes.
It's making a huge difference.
I'm eating healthy and staying physically active.
I'm taking my medicine.
If I can do it, anyone can.
Control your diabetes for life. Call 1-800-438-5383.
As I told you in the intro, today we're talking about employee theft, and it's something, unfortunately, that too many people, too many companies are having to deal with it. I just read, I guess it was yesterday or the day before, about a church in Philadelphia where a longtime trusted employee in a Catholic church stole almost $1 million, $900,000 plus dollars over a period of time. Was it overnight? No. Was it in a week or a month? No. Was it a year? No. Well, it took a while for that person to embezzle this amount of money. No one knew it. No one became suspicious. No one could even imagine that this lady was capable of embezzling, stealing, conniving, and stealing over $900,000. Nobody could even imagine it. And this is what we're talking about today. We're talking about being embedded within a company, not raising too many suspicions, not rocking the boat too much, and being an employee of the company, taking advantage of the position, taking advantage of the access that the employee has while they steal you blind. Many of these employees, especially long-term employees that have been caught stealing, are well-trusted employees that you treat like your family. And yet here they are, stealing you blind. Not too long ago, another church employee in Florida was caught stealing almost $500,000. This was a long-term secretarial office manager type position. She'd been with the church a long time. Everyone there couldn't believe that Sister So-and-so had been the one who was skimming off the building fund, been the one who was skimming off the missions fund, been the one who'd been skimming off the various accounts that the church had set up for longevity. A number of accounts were set up, in case a crisis was to happen. The roof caved in, the church crumbled, whatever. But here, this trusted, long-time employee was just bleeding them dry. And no one suspected it for a long, long time. Employee theft is definitely up. Some experts are saying, and I agree, that internal theft, which has really always been a problem, is just becoming the number one issue for employers. Like I said earlier, it doesn't matter if you're a retail employer, a church, a corporation, a charity. Oh my gosh, so many volunteer and paid staff members of charities are being arrested left and right for stealing, even law enforcement. It saddens me to tell you that just yesterday a law enforcement officer was arrested for stealing from an officer down fund, a fund that they use to support the families of police officers killed in the line of duty. What's wrong with people these days? Employee thefts are extremely hard to catch unless you really monitor, really audit, really have check and balances. We at Private Officer International monitor employee thefts nationally, and we are seeing an increase, a dramatic increase of theft. And we're not talking about dime and nickel. We're not talking about a little bit here, a little bit there. No, we're talking about people getting away with serious amounts of cash for a long period of time without anyone being the wiser. Who's watching the store? Unfortunately, another thing that we're seeing that employees are stealing merchandise, money, and services together, jointly, in an organized operation. So not just one employee of the company, but multiple employees of the company are involved. I once investigated a retail store that had a huge refund operation among 8 employees within the region, not just one store, but a number of stores. It didn't start out that way. It started out with 1, and then 2, and then they brought in some family members in another store, and before you know it, they're stealing and refunding among the stores. And I hate to say this, but usually employee theft is like cockroaches. When you see one, it usually means that there's more that you haven't seen yet, but they are there. And today, I'm going to talk to you for a few minutes about Giselle and Victoria, two women, two different work environments, but they both had one reason for their employment. And like I said earlier, a lot of employers do not want to even think about this. But let me tell you the news headlines just from this week. Okay? Transit Authority employee charged with embezzlement. Smith Athletic Association treasurer faces embezzlement in Chesterfield, Virginia. Lakeland, Florida insurance company employees, two, charged with stealing over $500,000 from a family-owned business. Geneva, Illinois, the street division superintendent, a long-time, 14-year veteran or so, charged with stealing from the city. Ross Township, an employee of the tax collector's office, arrested for embezzlement, thousands of dollars. Philadelphia, Archdiocese senior member stole more than $900,000. I was telling you about this just a minute ago. Unbelievable. Richard Stockton College employee caught stealing within the last week. A Texas school district business manager charged with major fraud and embezzlement. Little Rock, Arkansas. A man is charged with felony embezzlement. Palm Beach, Florida. Wells Fargo employee charged with embezzlement, a bank employee, embezzlement and theft of customer account money. A woman in Alabama arrested for embezzlement and identity theft. She worked at a bank. We're not talking about people coming in with guns and holding you up. We're talking about people that are using their smarts, using their access to gain control of services, goods, and cash within your business. It's almost like a thief coming in the cover of night, except they're walking in smiling, hey, how's it going? Day after day, you're not the wiser as they continue to steal your business blind. I can go on with all of the people who have been arrested just this month. Today's the 9th of February, and already I've got a list of over 100 employees. 100 employees arrested just this month in 9 days, charged with embezzlement. I know you don't want to believe it. I know it's hard to understand. Last year we talked with a company, two retired police officers who set up an investigation company who specializes in internal theft audits, internal theft investigations. They specifically have insight on church theft, and they would go into churches, and it was unbelievable. Churches that never had an audit on their books, never checked twice whether their person in charge was stealing or if everything was accurate. I guess they were just hoping on a wing and a prayer that everything was okay. And these investigators told tales of how pastors and church boards just couldn't believe that Sister So-and-so had been stealing for 3, 4, 5, 6 years. The same thing with corporations. They interviewed a CEO of a company last year after one of their employees was able to embezzle $1.2 million from the company. And he said, I knew her. She was like a daughter. She's worked here for 23 years. But you know what's harder to believe? What's harder for them to accept is when they find out that these trusted employees have been stealing not just for the last week or two, not for the last month or year, but for years and years and years. What a slap in the face. You give an employee a job. You treat them like family. You give them everything that they need. You give them great benefits. You give them a nice, comfortable place to work. You even set them up for retirement. You give them a 401k or some type of benefit. You help them out. In a lot of cases, especially with churches, you find out that they've gone to the employer's home. They've been there for parties, picnics, family events, year after year after year. And then you find out they've been stealing from you. Not a little bit, but thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands. Giselle worked at an upscale Ohio store. She had applied for the job during a seasonal hiring and was put on full-time in March of that year, of the following year. Her employer says she was a bright, educated, articulate, smiling woman. She was always happy. She was great with customers. She had a great relationship with coworkers, the store manager said. In fact, one manager had actually described Giselle as her dream employee. Oh, if she only knew. She had said she wished that she had more just like Giselle. But almost a year into the employment, the loss prevention agents of the store began to notice that Giselle was often spending time in the fine jewelry department, where she made friends with that department manager. She even relieved the manager for breaks. On occasion, she'd even been seen trying on new jewelry pieces and laughing and, having a great time with the department manager. And we're not talking about the cheap stuff. We're not talking about cosmetic jewelry. We're talking about the expensive stuff. This was a very upscale retailer. Loss prevention also noticed that Giselle was always all too willing to help out in the stock room and to relieve other department employees and fill in wherever. And she was floating around the store as if she was part of the management team. But the managers loved her. They loved her initiative. They loved her perkiness. They loved how she was willing to do anything, anywhere, help anybody. But as loss prevention agents began to catch on that everything wasn't as it really appeared to be, they also noticed that jewelry pieces were beginning to disappear from the high-end jewelry department, that some departments were becoming short in their cash drawer. At first, that brought suspicion on the part-time employees and the department managers. In fact, one employee was terminated even though the store could not prove that the employee had anything to do with the theft or the missing money. But further investigation by the loss prevention agents, luckily they stayed on top of their prime suspect, and they turned back to Giselle. And through their investigation, they found out that she had taken more than $50,000 of merchandise and cash in just 9 months. 9 months. And here's a killer. She stated during her interrogation and in her statement that she came to the store during the Christmas holidays with the intent, it's funny how some people really incriminate themselves when you're talking with them, when you're interrogating them, when you're trying to get them to confess. I could tell you a story. I could write books and books on it. But in this particular case, Giselle admitted that she came to the retailer during a busy Christmas season for no other reason but to steal from the retailer whatever she could, as much as she could, and then her plan was to leave, to quit. Or she thought maybe the job was only going to be, it was supposed to be a seasonal job, so she thought it'd be over by the 1st of January. But when she noticed how easy it was to steal, how unchecked it was, how there was no checks and balances and no one really paid too much attention, how little supervision there was within the store. When she was asked to stay on as a full-time employee, guess what? She was all too happy to do so. She stayed much longer than she had expected or planned, as she enjoyed stealing from the people who were trying to help her. On the other side of the street, actually on the other side of the country, another woman was in her middle ages, recently divorced, a mother of 4. Victoria had been working in a town office as a court clerk. She'd been an okay employee for a number of years. In fact, she was a tenured employee with the county, 12 years on the job. Co-workers liked her. They said she was fine. From all appearance, she was just a normal, average woman, employee, mother, and divorcee. But Victoria was arrested last year after an unexpected audit at the courthouse was performed when a new chief clerk won election. And lo and behold, guess what happened? They found out that Victoria had misdirected deposits and cash totaling more than $154,000 in just 6 years. Embedded within the courthouse, within the legal system, police and sheriff's deputies coming in and out of there every day, and she having just smiling, normal conversation, hey, no one being the wiser, no one suspecting anything going on until the audit. But she had misdirected deposits that she was in control of making. She was responsible for verifying, counting, and recording all cash, check, and credit transactions each day, and to make sure those deposits were put together and sent out to the bank. She sealed the deal. She was in charge. She said she really enjoyed her job, but then there was a divorce. And from that point on, she said in court testimony, it became all about her. Screw everybody else. She was mad at the world, didn't care about the ex, did what she had to do to take care of the kids. But from that point on, it was all about her. Revenge, anger, everything was coming together in a negative way. She went out and she bought clothes. She went to the casinos. She had facials and nails done every week. She went on cruises, and she even bought a new car thanks to the taxpayers and the people who owed money at the court. It had nothing to do with need. It had everything to do with greed. But she said that she was literally ticked off, PO'd about the divorce. She didn't receive any alimony. She thought she should have received something. She only got a menial child support for the couple of kids who were still minors. The rest had turned 18, and she couldn't get anything from them. She was mad, angry, wanted revenge, wanted something, but she couldn't really get back at her ex-husband in any way. He was a lowlife, she said. So she chose to direct her frustration, her anger, at her employer, who had done nothing to her, had not caused the divorce, had no hand in what happened with her life, had given her a job for 12 years. She was a county employee. I imagine she had some pretty decent benefits, paid vacations, holidays, medical probably, retirement. But there, within the office of the court for that town, for that county, was embedded within an employee who not only stole here and there a little now and then, but embezzled thousands of dollars. Two different stories, two different scenarios, both true. But you have to understand, this is a different day and age. I read just recently about a man who had worked for Sears. And he stole, I believe it was $10 back then. It was like 30 or 40, 50 years ago. But he said his conscience wouldn't let him forget it. And last year he paid back the $10 plus interest that he'd taken. Those kind of people are few and far between. You're not going to see them. You're not going to hear about it very often. Unfortunately, many employees do come to work for you, for the store, for the company, for the corporation, for the church, sometimes with all good intentions of just having a good job. But then they see how easy it is to steal. Or maybe they have a situation arise and they take advantage of their access to your company, to your goods, to your services, to your cash. Embedded within your own company. Statistics have proven that there is a percentage of people that are stealing from you. I believe it's 1 in 5. The larger the company, the more people who have their hands in the till. The more people who are finding ways, every which way, to steal, to embezzle, to get over on you. Signs of embezzlement are not that easy to spot with the naked eye. And that's the unfortunate thing. That's where they have you. That's where they can get over on you, because you can't just, look at this or that and all of a sudden know, oh yeah, they're stealing from me. But there are ways to control it. There are ways to spot it. If you're a business, if you're a retailer, you have money transactions, you have high dollar items such as jewelry within your employees' control, I recommend that you use frequent audits. Use two-person checks when counting the money. Use covert surveillance. Install control items. Many times, we recommend that you use outside auditors on a frequent basis because, face it, employees talk to subcontractors and people in the store all the time, whether they be repairmen, whether they be floor cleaners, whoever. And it doesn't take a whole lot to come together and decide they'll team up. And now you've got not only an employee, but a subcontractor. So I always suggest that you hire a good outside auditing team. Professional CPAs. Also, always require two-party signatures on checks if you're a church or company. Never let the bookkeeper, the treasurer, sign off on checks of more than, a few $100s maybe. Backtrack every invoice issued paid. That's one of the biggest ways that employees who are bookkeepers and treasurers and secretaries flim-flam churches and companies today is they falsify invoices, fake invoices for work never done in your business, never done on your business, that you never ordered, never wanted, and all of a sudden you got an invoice, sometimes month after month, for $1,500, $2,800, $6,000. And if you're not checking those documents, if you're not checking those invoices, if you don't really have day-to-day hands on everything what's going on in your business, then you're gonna miss it. You're not gonna know what's going on. And they pay themselves. They pay these invoices, and they have the check sent to them, deposited to them, even in phony checking accounts. They'll set it up under a phony name, phony business name. Never, ever allow one person to be in charge with paying invoices of substantial amounts. Always have checks and balances in place. It's unfortunate, but it's just something you have to do in this day and age. You just can't let people get over on you, because they will put you out of business. Background checks are okay, but don't depend solely on them, because oftentimes they are inaccurate. They're filled with inaccurate information. And sometimes people start criminal activities later in life. It's just that simple. Sometimes they don't, they weren't a criminal in the first 30 years, and all of a sudden now, the last 5 years, they're an embezzler. Who knows why? I don't know, but, it's crazy, but that's how it works sometimes.
You wouldn't do that. So why do you do this? Distracted driving kills an average of 9 people and injures over 1,000 every day in America. Put down your phone. Lives depend on it. Don't drive intoxicated. Don't drive intoxicated. A sobering message from AAA.
Think about everything that you save. You save gas, you save money, you save time. But have you ever thought about saving life? That's right, life. In just 1 hour, you could save up to 3 lives, giving 3 people more time with the ones they love. And isn't that the best thing to save? The need for blood is as universal as it is constant. Save life, give blood.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this edition of the LP Zone. But join us tomorrow, Monday morning, for the Private Officer Beat Radio. You're not going to want to miss the show, because there's a lot of great information, news, and some other things coming. We're not going to spoil the beans. We're not going to spill the beans here, but you definitely want to listen to that show. And then next week, join us on the LP Zone for Part 2 as we talk about how to go about catching these embedded, dishonest employees, the investigation, the prosecution, and so much more. But until then, be blessed, be safe, and we'll see you back here, of course, on the radio.